Sun Suiying is the eldest granddaughter of Dr. Sun Yat-Sen, and she's been a resident here in California for many years. And there's also another daughter, another granddaughter of Dr. Sun Yat-Sen, Sun Sui-Hua, who lives in Southern California. Anyway, we're lucky to have both of them living right here in the state of California. But anyways, Sun Suiying is, of course, lived through a lot of the events after the revolution, and of course there was a tremendous amount of struggle during that period of time, as there was up through 1949 and even afterwards. And she can tell you some of that, but I think she's going to focus more on why the revolution of 1911 actually occurred. What were the reasons? You know, why did her grandfather feel that reforms would not suffice, and nothing short of an overthrow of the Qing Dynasty would be the only way forward for China. So with that, it gives me great pleasure to welcome Sun Suiying.
Hello and good evening. I'm honored to be here this evening to give you a brief picture of the events and circumstances that led to the 1911 revolution in China. Three factors came together that allowed the Chinese people to accept the risks and benefits of the revolution in 1911. First, from 1830 through 1900, China suffered many losses due to wars and weak governance. Second, my grandfather, Dr. Sun Yat-Sen, witnessing the injustice and oppression experienced by his people, found the passion necessary to lead the revolution. And third, huge numbers of overseas Chinese in Southeast Asia, Japan, Hawaii, America, Canada, and Europe, who also saw this injustice and oppression, readily provided money and support, many giving their lives for the revolution. For thousands of years, China was a strong and self-sufficient nation, ruled by a series of dynasties, ending with the overthrow of the Qing Dynasty in 1911. Unlike most of the dynasties which were ruled by the Han people in majority, the Qing Dynasty was led by the Manchu in minority. By 1830s, the oppressive and self-indulgent Qing Dynasty had become very weak. Britain was importing opium from India to trade with China for porcelain, silk, tea, and other goods. Millions of Chinese became opium addicts. When the Manchu government tried to stop the opium imports, Britain refused and went to war with China from 1839 to 1842. Under the Treaty of Nanjing, China ceded Hong Kong to Britain, opened 5 other ports to British trade, and allowed foreigners to live within the concessions under their own country's laws. During the next 60 years, China is repeatedly subjected to imperial invasion like this by many countries. Later on, Britain leases Weihai Wei for 25 years and Hong Kong's new territories for 99 years. parts of the Yangtze River Valley and come under the British spheres of influence. Soon, other European countries also want to impose unequal terms of commerce with China. In 1884, the French defeat China in the Sino-French War over Vietnam, resulting in China leasing Guangzhou Bay to France for 99 years. Guangdong, Guangxi, and Yunnan provinces fall under the French sphere of influence. In 1894, the Sino-Japanese War over Korea results in Korea's independence and China ceding Taiwan, the Pescadores Islands, to Japan. Fujian province also become part of Japan's sphere of influence. In 1897, after 2 German missionaries are murdered, Germany forces China to sign a 99-year lease and concede 2 railways. Qingdao and other areas of Shandong province become Germany's sphere of influence. Also in 1897, Russia seizes parts of Manchuria on the pretext of protecting China from Germany. Russia compels China to lease Port Arthur and Dalian to Russia for 25 years and allow Russia to build railways to those ports. During this time, America is preoccupied with the Spanish-American War and Philippine Revolution. The defeat of Spain gives the United States control of its colonies, the Philippines, Guam, Cuba, and Puerto Rico. In 1899, the U.S. proposes to Britain, France, Germany, Russia, Japan, and Italy the idea of equal commercial opportunities in China. With all these powers already extracting concessions from China, the U.S. wants some of the actions too. In order to avoid further conflict, the European powers and Japan agrees to the U.S. declaration, which becomes known as the American Open Door Policy. In all these wars, which China lost, she paid indemnity in addition to ceding territories and granting privileges to foreign powers. This weakened China even more. I grew up hearing stories about how humiliating those days were for the Chinese people. A sign on a public park in Shanghai warned, quote, "No dogs or Chinese allowed," end of quote. Increasingly, China also confronts internal unrest. In 1850, the Taiping movement launched a military campaign against the Qing government, but is defeated. In 1899, the Boxer Rebellion initially focuses against the Qing government, but later turns against the foreigners, whom the rebels blame for their hardship, poverty, and rising unemployment. The foreign powers that occupy many parts of China import foreign goods and fix tariffs that depress China's economy. The Boxers fight their way to Beijing's foreign legations area with the help of government troops, where they are met and defeated by the international force from Russia, Germany, Japan, Britain, France, United States, Italy, and Austria. These 8 nations demand indemnity, the final settlement signed by 11 countries and China on September 7, 1901. The indemnity when fully paid with interest, is more than twice the original sum and is to be paid in foreign currencies. The settlement also prohibits China from importing arms. It requires China to destroy her forts and allows foreign troops to occupy areas from the coast as far inland as Beijing. These demands leave China defenseless and undermine the administration of her government by suspending civil service examinations. On July 3rd, 1900, the United States issued a second open-door policy under the pretext of preserving China's territorial and administrative integrity and implementing impartial trade with all parts of China. Through the end of the 19th century, agriculture and handicraft remained the mainstay of Chinese economy. The population growth reduces the average farm size by 25% between 1890 and 1910. Below normal harvests become ever more frequent and widespread. While the hand-spun cotton yarn and hand-woven cloth continue to dominate, in 1890, Britain begins to displace traditional Chinese textiles as its mills in Bombay start exporting machine-made cloth to China. Meanwhile, native Chinese industry is restrained by feudalism in agriculture and the Qing Dynasty's failure to support the infrastructure needed for expansion of commodity markets and private investment. On top of all these wars, rebellions, socioeconomic stagnation, natural disasters add to China's problems. In 1898, the river valleys flood from Sichuan to Shandong and from Jiangxi, Anhui to Jiangsu. In 1900, drought hits North China. Widespread famine, hardship, and poverty drive many into banditry. The people feel humiliated, stripped of self-confidence and self-respect. The Manchu government attempts some reforms, but these are half-hearted, too few and too late. Many Chinese see the Manchu government as corrupt, bankrupt, and weak. More and more Chinese see revolution as the only way to a better life. Now, this is the context in which my grandfather, Dr. Sun Yat-Sen, grew up. Now, let me share some stories about him that shed light on how he came to have a burning passion for revolution in China. In the summer of 1876, my grandfather was 10 years old, growing up in Suiying village. One day, his father tells him to go work in the family plot of land and to take the young water buffalo to a pasture. On the way, my grandfather sees 20 or more Manchu officials riding into the village on horseback. The officials go to the Yang family's compound and have their horses trampled all over the garden. The Yangs have 3 sons, and they are one of the few wealthy families in the village. The Manchu officials demand the brothers to open their doors. When no one answers, the officials break down the doors and go inside. Only the frightened servants are home. The Manchu officials begin taking valuables. Later, the officials find 2 of the brothers and execute them. The eldest brother escaped to Hong Kong, which is a British colony at that time. my grandfather would never forget the injustice he saw that day. The following summer, my grandfather's eldest brother, Sun Mei, who is my granduncle, came home for a visit from Hawaii. Sun Mei brings home some gifts for his friend to his friend's family, the Zheng Qiang's family, who live in a nearby village. He asked my grandfather to deliver the gifts. The round trip would take him a whole day. Grandfather set out early one morning, carrying a long pole on his shoulder with baskets of gifts on either end. He walks for some time. As he enters a road between two small hills, a man suddenly approaches him from the opposite direction. The man asks my grandfather where he is going. And my grandfather tells him, the man says he's going there too, and turned around to walk with my grandfather. Suspicious of the man's intent, my grandfather says he is tired from carrying the load. The man offered to carry it for him. As they approach a village, my grandfather tells the stranger that he needs to stop by the village down the hill to deliver a gift, and asks the man to wait for him on the side of the road. He gives the man something to eat, and the man agrees to wait for him. My grandfather disappears down the hill. Soon he returns with a group of strong men carrying knives, poles, and other weapons. When the man sees this, he runs, but is caught. He confesses to belonging to a group of thieves who kidnap children and young adults to sell them into forced labor. A year later, in 1878, my grandfather is now 12 years old, leaves China with Sun Mei's friends, the Zheng Qiang family, to attend Christian schools in Hawaii. Sun Yat-Sen graduates from Ianani School in 1882 and then attends Punahou School. The Western education he received in Hawaii greatly influences his views on democratic governments, which later became the foundation of his revolutionary ideals for saving and modernizing China. When my grandfather expresses desire to join the Christian faith, his elder brother objects, for fear that he will forget his Chinese culture, beliefs, and customs. To settle the matter, Sun Mei puts my grandfather on a ship to go back to China in 1883. My grandfather is now 17 years old. On the way to Hong Kong, the ship first stops at a small nearby island for custom inspection. Soon after docking, the Qing officials come on board, followed by attendants carrying knives. They order all the passengers to open their bags for inspection. They proceed to take small valuables and put them in their own pockets. Afraid of mistreatment, some passengers offer money and gifts to the officials. My grandfather sees this corruption, but he's afraid to speak up or to take action for fear that creating trouble on those on board. The officials leave and the passengers repack their bags. Soon, another group of officials come on board to inspect the bags again. When they come to inspect my grandfather's bag, he's a little bit annoyed and says, "We just had our bags inspected. Why do you have to inspect them again?" The official says, "The prior inspection was for local customs. We are here to collect duty." After this second group leaves, a third group boards. The officials say they come to inspect for opium to protect the people. My grandfather says, We have opened our bags twice already. These officials are carrying swords. One of them waves his sword in front of my grandfather's face to intimidate him. Everyone has to open their bags for inspection again. Each time the officials take items for themselves. Again, the passengers repack the bags. Unexpectedly, a fourth group of officials come on board the ship, carrying weapons and loudly shouting to the passengers to open their bags. My grandfather said, "What is your business?" One official replies that they come to inspect for banned substances to protect the public. My grandfather places his foot on his bag and refuses to open it, saying, "These bags have been inspected 3 times already, and they contain only clothes." But the other passengers were afraid of trouble and persuaded my grandfather to let them inspect his bag. And the captain came over too and told him to allow for the inspection. Otherwise, they might detain the ship from going to Hong Kong. After the officials leave, the captain secretly gives them some money. The next day, the ship is allowed to sail for Hong Kong. My grandfather, thinking of the justice system he learned about in America versus the rampant corruption and abuse of power he just experienced, says to the passengers, "These officials have treated us badly. When we get to China, I will help you sue them for mistreatment." But the captain laughs and tells him, "There is no justice system in place to sue anybody." My grandfather, at age 17, is now firmly convinced the Qing government needs reform. Upon his return to China, my grandfather enrolls at the medical college for Chinese in Hong Kong. After graduation, he practices medicine in Macau and then in Guangzhou. He continues to develop ideas about how to reform China. He writes to Li Hongzhang, a high official in the Manchu government, about these ideas. His letter is ignored. It becomes clear to him and his friends that reform is not possible. Only revolution will save China. He decides to leave his medical practice and devotes his time and energy wholeheartedly to the revolution. At this point, my grandfather began to organize his friends and others from all walks of life, students, laborers, intellectuals, businessmen, merchants, who believe in the fight to save China. In 1895, he and his supporters staged the first uprising in Guangzhou, but it fails. From that day forward, he is a hunted man. So he leaves China to carry on the revolutionary activities abroad. As he travels the world, he studies the political, economic, and social systems of Western countries, and at the same time raises funds for the revolution among overseas Chinese and friends in Japan, Hawaii, the US mainland, Canada, Europe, and Southeast Asia. He develops his 3 principles of the people as the foundation for a new republic. Over the course of 15 years, he and his supporters planned, financed, and staged 10 uprisings, all of which failed. In 1910, he meets his friends and supporters in Penang, Malaysia, at what has come to be known as the Penang Conference, to plan for one more uprising the following year. On October 10, 1911, while he is traveling in America to raise funds, the uprising in Wutang succeeds and quickly spreads to other provinces in the south, central, and east of China. My grandfather is elected the first provisional president of the new Republic of China, and is inaugurated on January 1st, 1912. The Qing Emperor, Shentong Bunyi, abdicates on February 12, 1912. But one of the conditions of his abdication was that a former Qing official, Yuan would be handed the presidency in March 1912. Indeed, his authoritarian rule forces Sun Yat-Sen into exile. In 1915, Yuan declares himself to be emperor until mounting opposition deposes him in 1916. After the revolution of 1911, it would take another 16 years of civil war against the warlords in the north before the country is unified. The events in China leading up to the 1911 revolution, my grandfather's passion to improve the lives of the Chinese people, and the support of overseas Chinese and friends throughout the world led the Chinese people to embrace revolution in the hope of creating a better life for themselves and for future generations. So much has changed in 100 years. Today, the eyes of the world are on China as it rapidly develops into an economic powerhouse and undergoes breathtaking change. This October 10, 2011 is the 100th anniversary of the 1911 revolution and the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Republic of China. I wish the Chinese people a very happy anniversary. Thank you.